On today's video, I'm going to be working on the neck for the custom base I'm building. I'm going to be shaving down the headstock to its final thickness and tapering the neck to its final thickness with a table saw and some homemade jigs. After that's done, I'm going to be gluing the ears on the headstock. Oh, and I made a huge mistake on the table saw that almost ruined the neck. Just a reminder, if you don't have experience using tools or power tools, but want to get into woodworking, please get some in-person training. There's no replacement for hands-on training when it comes to safely using tools. So in the past, what I've used to do this process is a plane, just a hand plane. And I was actually intending to use the hand plane to do this. But then I got a bright idea. Hey, why don't I try using my table saw to do this? It'll take way less time to do. And I can probably even use the jig I made in the last episode. So that's what we're gonna try doing. So maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. All right, so I got my jig that I made for last week, and it's a little bit worse for wear. Some stuff got thrown on top of it, but I'm pretty sure it's still gonna work just fine. So we're still gonna use it. So the thing that I realized is that if I put the neck on it like this, the surface we have to remove is actually going to be parallel to the fence on the table saw. So I'm actually going to go over to the table saw and show what I'm talking about. So what I've done is I've put an extension on my fence all the way down here, and I've also got a makeshift in-feed table. So I can slide this up against the fence, and that puts the blade right there on the headstock. And it's going to push the headstock so that it cuts a slice off of this surface, which is what I want to do. This does not look like a square cut. So that's got me wondering what the heck is going on. So what I did is I grabbed my calipers here, and I'm just trying to measure this headstock. On this corner we got 0.545 of an inch. Now we'll come down to the back corner, 0.545. So we got a consistent thickness on this side of the headstock. Let's go over to this side. So yeah, it looks like we got 0.518 and pretty close to that, 0.52. So this side is 25 thousandths of an inch thinner than this side, which would kind of probably correspond a little bit with this side of the offcut being shorter. If I had to guess anything, the jig wasn't perfectly square because I did end up throwing a week's worth of, materials, offcuts and stuff from my job onto it. So that probably messed it up a little bit. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of a slower approach and use my screen door sanding block and just sand this to perfection. Okay, so I was able to get this a consistent thickness, 0.505 inches. Perfect. We can move on to our neck thickness. So one thing I'm going to show though is all this sawdust, or I guess sand dust, all this wood dust. I'm going to keep this because it will come in handy later. We'll hold on to this stuff. So if you had a chance to see my other video where I actually made the blank for this neck, I went over this a little bit, but I'll go over it again in case you missed it. So the fretboard thickness is 235 thousandths of an inch thick. Our first fret thickness that we want, including the fretboard, is going to be 925 thousandths of an inch, and the 12th fret thickness that we want, including the fretboard, is 990 thousandths of an inch thick. Let's just do some quick math here. So 0.925 minus 0.235 equals 0.690 inches. That's how thick our neck is going to be. Okay, at the first fret, our neck is going to be 0.69 inches. Then, so we're going to have 0.99 for our 12th fret minus 0.235. That'll give us 0.755 inches at our 12th fret. Okay, so we're going to mark out where our first fret is and where our 12th fret is. Once we remove thickness from the neck, because we're removing it from this top side, it's going to bring this angle over this way. So what I'm going to do right now is just position so that the front of the nut slot is on that brake angle, and that should give us a ballpark, I think, anyway. We'll find out. We'll mark our first fret here. And then we'll mark our 12th fret here. Now what we're going to do is measure from the back side, this surface, up our desired thickness. So for the first fret, we want a thickness of 0.690 inches. So on the calipers, we got 0.690 inches. So we're just going to first extend our marks that we made to the side of the neck. So you see what I did there? I just extended the line down to the side. Now I'm going to measure up from the bottom up to the top. 0.69 inches. I'm going to flip it over and do it on the other side too. Now the next measurement that we need is 0.755 inches. 0.755 inches. And that's going to be at the 12th fret. So again, we're going to measure from the bottom side up. Flip it over and do the same from the bottom. Okay, so line up these two lines that I just made. Kind of hard to see through camera, but I've got a line coming all the way down this neck, and that's how much we got to remove off the top of it. You can barely see this, but it's going to come out about here. So that's going to shift our brake from this spot here all the way over to here. What I got here is some pegboard. So I'm going to use this pegboard for my base to cut the thickness of the neck on the table saw. The first thing I got to do is cut this down a bit because right now it's way too big. Okay, so I got my piece of pegboard cut, and as you can see, it's pretty big. It goes right off the workbench here. The next thing I'm going to do is grab my neck, and I made my line on here. And I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have to line it up somehow on here. Actually, I guess that wasn't that tricky. So I got it lined up the way that I want it. Now I'm going to draw a line. So this is going to be really hard to see, so you're going to have to trust me. But what I've done is I've lined up the edge of the pegboard on the line that I previously drew on this neck. And then, this part's a little bit easier to see, I drew a line on the pegboard, and that's going to be where I put my fence. So much like our last table saw jig, I will be using a 2x4 as my fence. Again, probably not ideal, but on this one, I at least cut this edge on the table saw so it's square. So yeah, just gonna hook it up like I did the last one. Super glue and screws. Oh, I totally screwed this up. From here up, I shouldn't have attached it. There we go. Now I gotta attach this neck to this fence. Obviously, I can't use clamps because the blade is gonna be cutting through the thickness of it. Gonna have to rely pretty heavily here on some super glue. I'm gonna cover the back side of this with tape. I'm gonna cover this surface with tape, and then I'm gonna super glue them together. Okay, so I got my super glue on the back of the neck there. Got my accelerator, gonna accelerate the fence. All right. Just gonna quickly throw a couple clamps on here. If you didn't know, pressure actually helps super glue set up. Okay, I'm just gonna go get my saw set up now. Oh no. Oh, bam. I totally messed that up. I can't believe I did that. Ah, I totally screwed this up. But aside from that, this technique actually worked quite well. Actually worked really well. I mean, yeah, I got some burns because my saw blade is, probably not good enough or something. But yeah, there. I just wasn't paying enough attention when I was started pushing it through and it wasn't lined up against the fence. So that's a real bummer, like a super big bummer. That sucks. So, well, I guess I'm gonna give up. Just kidding. I'm not going to give up. What I'm going to do is fix that. I had to come outside to film this because my light is not working right now, my recording light. But anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece. This is the offcut that I cut off of here. And I'm just going to cut, you can see I marked out a square here, which corresponds to this cut. I'm going to cut the square out of here. And then I'm going to sand the radius of the saw blade into it so that it's a perfect fit. And I'm just going to glue it in here, and then I'm going to carry on, and hopefully it's not too noticeable. I'm just going to go in and make this patch piece right now. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to be able to record it because, as I said, my recording light's not charged. It didn't charge when I took my break, so I'll jump back in and just show you what the finished patch looks like, and I'll glue it in and we'll keep going from there. Okay, so I got this piece made. It's not the greatest fit in the world, but it's what I'm working with here, so I'm just gonna glue it in with some super glue. My light still isn't charged, so I'm just outside doing this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is just glue this little tiny piece on here that broke off. Apologies on the light. Anyways, I'm going to glue this together, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to glue it on here to hopefully hide the seam as much as possible. So I got the edge glued back on there with some thin cyanoacrylate super glue. Now what I'm going to do is just loosely glue this in place on here. Then I'm going to take some of this dust that I harvested earlier. I'm going to pack it into the crack, and then I'm going to put more super glue on it to, fill in the crack. So I got that piece glued in there now. I'm just going to sand it down get it level with the rest of the neck. I gotta be honest, I think this will be just fine. Well, first of all, the neck's going to get trimmed back here. The thickness of the nut is a lot narrower than this is currently. This surface is going to be covered by the fretboard. This surface is going to be covered by the headstock veneer. And so really, it'll only be a tiny little mark that maybe we'll see once the neck is carved. We'll have to see how it turns out. So anyways, what I'm getting ready to do right now is to glue my headstock ears on. So here I have the drawing of the headstock that I made. So as you can see, it is quite a bit bigger than our current headstock. What I did was I cut some strips of the same material I made this neck out of for basically to glue on the side of the headstock. So it's going to actually be wide enough for the design we're going with. My apologies, I did not make a video of me actually cutting these strips. These are short enough I was able to run them through the table saw and not have to go to any crazy lengths to get them to actually match up perfectly like I did with these long pieces for the neck or the big thick pieces for the body. These only required minimal sanding to get perfect edges on. So if you'd like me to make a video of how I did this in the future, maybe on my next build, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just going to proceed with this glue up. So I finally got this set up here. What I ended up doing is I used a piece of cardboard. Shout out to my brother for buying me this torque wrench. The packaging came in very handy. Anyway, so I have it spaced, the headstock that is spaced slightly off the surface of the workbench. You probably can't tell, but it is. So when I go and I take my piece of ear material, it sticks up slightly on the back side as well as on the front side, which is currently facing the table. So I'll have room to sand on both sides is what I'm getting at. So right now I'm just going to put some glue on these pieces of wood, clamp them on the headstock, and get out of here for a bit. We're all glued up. We got 4 clamps. Oh, we got 4 clamps going, holding the whole thing together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I got these 2 little clamps holding the ends. And then I got 1 clamp holding it down to the desk. So I'm just going to let this dry for a little bit, and I'll come back and show you it once it's done. Okay, so there we go. We got our ears glued onto the headstock. Worked out great. We've got some extra material to remove on the back side as well as on the front side. So that's perfect. That's just what I wanted. And it looks like we're going to have more than enough material to make our cut our headstock out of. So that's it for this video. Obviously things took a turn for the worse, but I'm pretty sure it will be okay. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on my repair. On the next video, I'm going to be getting these headstock ears shaved down to the thickness of the rest of the head. Then I'm going to glue the headstock veneer on and probably also cut the truss rod channel. After that video, I'll be gluing on the heel for the neck, making the tenon where it joins the body, shaping the fingerboard, carving the neck, cutting out the body, etc., etc. So if you aren't subscribed and want to see how this turns out, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And if you are subscribed, thank you for subscribing and watching my videos. Until next week, talk to you later.